Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. Today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know or would like to know about sauna stoves, bath stoves. These websites I found are all very good, but they're all, as usual, all in Russian.
Есть ограничения не по весу, а по объему.
I don't speak it, so as usual, we'll turn the sound off to this video. And if you want to build a bath stove for your house, there's a couple different ways to go about it. I'm going to show you. I mean, I don't even know if this stuff is even sold in the U.S. It's a huge market in Russia. Let me just show you this. I mean, they really believe in their saunas and baths in Russia. They believe it has healing qualities, a way to warm the body. When it's negative 30 degrees outside, they do it communally. The upper middle class or higher will do it. Will have a bath even in their home, and it's very much about cleansing and healing, and that's actually a very good graphic how these stoves work. The stoves I'm going to show you, I'll leave a link by the way, because these videos are hard to find, very hard to find, because YouTube knows you're in the US or in the UK and won't show you stuff from Russia, where the market for baths and saunas is, it's like 1,000 times bigger than in the United States. So these stoves, the rocks are not directly touched by the flames. Let me try to, can I move around this way? Yeah. These stoves wind, the gases are wound underneath the chamber, the iron chamber that holds the rocks. And, these stoves would work great just as regular wood-burning stoves to warm your house, but there's some features that make them uniquely bath stoves. So there's where you would place your rocks. They have these little things at the bottom, these metal, they look like grenades, but I don't know what that is. We'll try to discover a lot of what's going on here together. And the rocks are never touched directly by the flames. Now that's typically what's done when you buy a bath stove. Now the traditionalists in Russia are big on having the flames go right through the rocks. And we'll talk about those sort of options if you wanted to do something yourself. But that, you have to be, we'll talk about that later. If you buy a bath stove, it's going to just heat the rocks, and the rocks will never touch the flame. But the traditionalists in Russia, they'll build their stove so it goes right through the rocks. Okay, this company here, I don't know, again, some of the letters in Russian, they don't use our alphabet. This seems to be the leading company in Russia for these sauna stoves and bath stoves. And just to talk about some of the features here, see how this one is easier to see. This neck, where you would load the wood in here, see how this neck sticks out quite a ways, even up to a foot? That's because typically when a lot of these stoves are made for the application we saw, like a retreat or a company that, a sauna that serves customers. They don't want to have somebody come in, people are naked in the bath and load wood. So they have this neck. So the wood is, this is where the wall would be, a brick wall or wooden wall. The employees of the sauna would load wood here into the stove, and then there would be a wall. And the purpose of this neck is to bridge the wall. And then this part here would be inside the sauna with the private customer or the customers or what we saw. And the rocks would be loaded on top of this section here. And then this part, this little iron door at the top would open up, and the customers or whoever's taking the bath would pour the water on top of the rocks, and the steam would shoot out depending on how much steam or humidity you want in your bath, while people, or on the other side of the wall are loading in the wood. So that's why, the configuration looks like this. Okay, this is a little bit better view, and then I'll show you, he loads wood into one of them that's burning right now. I'll show you that in a second. The wood is loaded in here. It just seems like it's pretty tight, just about they have it cut away. I mean, this would extend out probably only 4 inches between this bottom or the top of the firebox, the iron here, and the iron at the bottom of the box that holds the rocks. And they have these little upside down pyramids which must help radiate the heat up. Just maybe 4 inches. It's very tight. as it winds under here. But all the heat is then condensed towards the bottom of the chamber that holds the rocks, and then just up and out. There's no more winding around of gases or anything like that. So let me play this and skip forward. Here we go. So as you see how far back, at least in this case, the neck, he has to really reach in there to load the wood, because remember, again, the idea is there could be private customers or something back there, and you can't keep coming in to load the wood. So there's probably nothing else in this video. There's a couple other videos I want to show you, and I guess, I don't know, would you be comfortable? Would you be comfortable sitting around with a bunch of naked people? And this is, a lot of times they do often build these, not facades. They'll build the whole brick stone around the stove, and as long as you can get access that way. It just would take, if you put the brick and the stone around it, it would take probably over an hour. I'm no expert at this. Probably over an hour, or an hour and a half to get the room heated up. I mean, you have to prepare your bathhouse way in advance before you use it, especially if it's surrounded by brick and stone. It would take a long time to heat up. Okay, this is from the company's website here. We'll leave a link to their YouTube channel, guys. And then they do have options. See, I just wanted to show you this. A lot of them have you can buy a cage that goes around the stove for an additional 40, 50, 60 rocks, whatever it may be, to build the rocks up all around the stove. Let me see if there's a picture in his showroom. Yeah, like something like that. Most of the more basic sauna stoves or bath stoves in Russia, it's really not much more than it's like just a regular iron stove with the cages around it for the rocks, and you'd end up pouring the water all over the rocks and all over the stove. So really a poor man's way of doing a bath stove. If you were these stoves, I'm sure in Russia, are very expensive, incredibly well built, but any sort of wood stove that you could build a cage around, if you had the right rocks, and you could build a cage and have the rocks sitting all around the all around the stove, technically you have a bath stove. Might not be the greatest, it might take longer to heat up, but you would have a sauna stove. An old, as I've talked about in other videos, the old wood stoves on Craigslist, to buy the old wood stoves, there used to be hundreds every time you looked 7, 8 years ago. And now there's, in your area, 2, 3, 4 wood stoves for sale. I mean, buy them up while you can. Okay, our friend Igor here shows us how to build a simple one ourselves. And this one, the gases go right up through the stones. This metal box would hold the stones. And there is a bit of a snob factor. I've kind of sensed this, even translating some of the comments from Russian to English for some of these videos, that where the gases and flame and everything going up through the rocks, I don't know, there's a little bit of a snob factor, like it's a different sort of heat, it's more cleansing. I don't, again, I've never even been in a sauna, I have no idea. But the thing about this, and I haven't been able to work out from looking at the comments or translating the videos, is of course, you load the wood in here, and I'll show you some of the details on this in just a second, some of the side cuts. And then there's another grate here that holds all the stones, and the gases and flame come right up through the chamber. This is to hold water. I'll show you this in a second. You couldn't possibly, when it's flaming up, you couldn't, you can't, the door here is to add the water and everything. So I've never read this, but there's no other way around it, right? The only way to do this, if you're letting the gases and the flame go up through the rocks, is you would need to heat this stove for an hour, or however long it takes for your rocks to really, really heat up. And then you have a bed of coals at the bottom, red coals, and no longer any fire. Then you would come into your bathhouse and you could pour water all over the rocks. And I don't think you could do this. I mean, obviously, when your water would fall onto the fire, so you'd have to wait until I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure how long they wait. Would they come in and let's say it's a bunch of red coals at the bottom, like your wood stove's burned out for an hour and a half. Would they start pouring the water and just let the water trickle all over the coals even down here? And I guess it's gonna draft well enough if you have a full-size chimney that when you open this door to pour the water in, it's not going to just pour out. It's going to still want to go up the chimney. So they've never been clear on how long you have to wait for the fire to go completely out before you can go in, start pouring the water on the rocks, etc. And I don't think they're gonna. It's hard enough to get the translation. The translation from Russian English half the time is terrible on these. So let me just show you what he did there. It's a very simple stove. This is the cutaway. The wood is loaded in here. Actually, this is like most Russian stoves. There's a grate here, and there's underneath is an air door or an ash door. The air comes up through the grate. This is the water tank. Here's the grate at the top of the firebox that would hold the bed of rocks, and then the chimney. Let me get another couple pictures for you. Go all the way back. Here, it's a red brick box, regular brick, and a fire brick on its side, built inside of red brick. When you fire brick inside of red brick, you have to leave, your probably 1 centimeter gap for expansion difference, the difference in expansion rates. Some people just shove down cardboard, thin cardboard, and of course it's going to burn up, but it's just a spacer until it burns up. It's probably fine as long as they're not completely touching. Maybe 1 to 2 centimeters. Use cardboard. Some people will stuff it with, the ceramic fiberboard insulation. You don't need to do that. I like the air spacing. So let's see, row 10. And you put the plate on the front part. Here's the door where the wood is loaded. The plate holds the water, and it's also a way of warming, heating up the water. I doubt the water would boil, but I guess you want warm water to pour on your rocks for the sauna and the bath. Then you just simply put another grate there, so then you could start piling up your rocks, and then any sort of. You could even use Of course, you could use a burn barrel of some kind of a burn barrel with a door cut in the burn barrel. I mean, you could do this pretty cheaply. You don't need to use. If you don't use it much, you don't need to use fire brick. Excuse me. Red brick can take the heat. It just doesn't like rapid heating and rapid cooling. Rapid heating, 1,000 degrees. Oh, then it's an outdoor fire pit. Then rapid cooling, it's negative 10 degrees outside. It doesn't like that. It'll start to crack. Red brick, generally, the old Russian stoves were all red brick. They didn't have fire brick in Siberia, so you'd use the stove every day. It never really got cold. You'd warm it up slowly, and then that red brick's fine with the heat, the intense heat. Doesn't like up and down quickly. So just if you were to do this, you'd start with a smaller fire. You don't want to just blaze it right off the start if you're just using red brick. Just get any sort of metal plate of probably less than 20 gauge or less. You need something somewhat thick. 18 gauge to hold your little water tank. You could make anything. I actually bought, just as a test, I bought stainless steel coat hangers to make a grate once, and they held up. They held up in the it's not really a permanent thing, but you could do it. You don't have to buy a grate or anything. You could make anything to hold your rocks, anything then that surrounds the rocks that you could make a door to get in there and pour your water. And this is a very easy bath stove project. Here's another website with a computer animation of how to make a bath stove. This is the air door here, or ash clean out door. And again, using regular red brick, firebox inside with a centimeter or two gap. He's going to bring the grate in here. Again, air flows underneath here will come up through the grate just created a little cutout lip with an angle grinder to hold the grate. You could do again you could use rebar, that'd be fine. Whatever, stainless. People are all, oh, stainless steel won't hold it. Yeah, it might like warp a little bit, but it'll hold up. I mean, stainless steel is good to 2,700 degrees. I'm tired of these comments that stainless steel doesn't hold up to heat. It's like, what the hell are they talking about? It might, the melting temperature of stainless steel is much hotter than iron. It might bend a tiny bit. Well, like, so what? It just has to, again, hold some wood. Okay, this video is only going to go in about another minute and 10 seconds, so I guess I'll just let it go. Let's see how they build their... Yeah, they usually use these metal tubes or metal pipe, whatever it may be, rebar to hold the rocks. As long as, just make sure there's enough, you don't want to trap your smoke, of course. Make sure there's enough room, because you have to, the smoke in these sorts of designs, again, the smoke and gases and flame is going right through the rocks. So your rocks should be big enough, of course. Can't use like pieces the size of nut coal, or the rocks have to be big because the gases and flame have to get through. And you'd want to err on the side of making the slits as big as possible. Don't want your gases and flame to back up. You don't want the flames to go through too quickly or go around. It won't heat your rocks, but it's better to err on that side from a carbon monoxide. I was recently poisoned, by the way, and I'm getting over it. That's a long story, but it's not a fun experience. Always err on the side of letting your gases go through bigger rocks, bigger holes, bigger cracks in what's holding your rocks. It's not worth the health issue, trust me. It's about the worst 4 days of my life. I was playing with a damper. It's a long story. I'll tell you some other time. So here again, you're just gonna pile the rocks inside the fire brick core, and they continue to use fire brick inside of red brick. I don't think it would be necessary to go this high up. I like using fire brick, of course, whenever possible for the firebox itself, whatever's going to touch flame, but I don't know. For a simple bath stove, you're going to use 10 or 15 times a year in your backyard. Most of this, isn't necessary. How much time's left? Just 20 seconds. Pretty simple. And then your side door here, so you could get in and pour the water, all over the rocks. And the steam comes out the door. Of course, the door you put your ladle in to pour the water over the rocks is where the steam comes out. And again, for a stove, let me go back. If you have fire brick inside of red brick, it's going to take a long time to heat up. I mean, it could take 2 or 3 hours to heat your little sauna that you make. If you just use red brick or one layer, it's going to take an hour less. That's something to consider. I mean, you don't just light it up and get in. I mean, you got to prepare these things hours in advance, especially if they're double layered like this. This is a pretty good example where you could see that the loading of the wood would be on the other side of the wall here. This whole building's under construction. A lot of times in Russia, they'll build the stove before the building will be built around the stove. But that's usually the case with a heating stove or a big Russian cooking stove. Here, this is some sort of little bathhouse under construction where the loading of the wood's on the other side of the wall. And then the people in the bath just have access to the door here, which is attached to that iron stove that I showed you. And this would be surrounded probably by a soapstone. The soapstone's the best sort of stone to radiate out the heat. But I mean, look how high the ceilings are. I mean, you'd need to fire this thing up for probably 3 hours before coming into this room to whatever the temperature they want to take it to. 104 degrees and high humidity. Again, I'm no expert on saunas. Let me continue with this and play the video. He's got the ladle there for the water, and he's got his rocks piled up inside the stove we looked at the beginning of this video. And look at all that steam that comes out. If you can get that much heat out of the rocks, when the rocks they're never touching the flame directly. Remember in this iron stove design, if you can get that much steam and heat, like why would you need to design a stove where the flame touches the rocks? But then again, this is a professional iron stove and they know exactly what they're doing. If you just pile a bunch of rocks on top of an old wood stove, do you get enough heat into the rocks to create that? I don't know. When you put that flame through the rocks, of course, you can take your rocks to a ridiculous temperature. Then that's not an issue. It's only an issue. I don't know much more about this than what I've told you. So I guess I'll end the video. But I would hate to pile up a bunch of rocks around a wood stove, and then you go to touch the rocks, and it's just not getting hot. That is a possibility if you pile up rocks around just any old wood stove. If I was building one of these, I'd want to err on, if a little shed out back or whatever, I'd err on having the flames go right through the rocks, and I wouldn't get in or wouldn't be doing any water or anything like that until all the fire is completely out. That way it's guaranteed to work. I wouldn't get into the little room either while the fire was burning. I wait for, and the water would seep down and get into the ash. It'd be messy, but whatever. I think that's just, they understand it's going to be messy down in the firebox when you clean out your ashes, like just mud and stuff. But so be it. It's not the end of the world. If you have a nice nice air door coming under your grate for wood, the water would fall through the grate, and you just shovel out the mud from your ash door. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Okay, I found a good video here. This guy at Brick Stove Masonry, it's all in Russian. He's got to be one of the leading stove makers in Russia. I mean, this guy really knows what he's doing. Let's skip around with this. Is a full-size bath stove that can also be used to heat the entire house. This is a full-size Russian stove. So, I mean, of course, the rocks. Let's go back there. The rocks are right in the line of fire there for the smoke and the gases. And I'll show you. He shows how this is made. 486 Celsius. Remember, that's much hotter than Fahrenheit. And that's the temperature of the wood surrounding the bathhouse. So you can see all those temperatures on the right. Wow, that is awesome. That is cool. That is cool. I'm going to skip around a lot, guys. I'll leave a link to this, and I'll leave a link to as much as I can. And this guy really, really knows his stuff, and he explains. Well, he shows you a lot. Haven't picked up too much of the Russian yet. If I keep watching thousands and more of these videos like I do, I should become fluent pretty soon. It's funny, a lot of these massive stoves, the base is just so much smaller than you would think. Like, that's it? It is. It's this base. When you just see the base, it's like there's nothing to it, but then ends up being this huge Russian stove. Okay, this is going to be made very similar to a Russian heating stove, where that you carve out your little area for the air to flow and the ash clean out, and I guess no fire brick has been used yet. Create your lip for the grate. Almost all these Russian stoves have a ash door, which is also a air door, and then a grate on top. The wood sits on the grate, and they're just big on using a grate, not a hearth. Have the wood come from underneath the wood through a grate. There's no doubt you get less smoke and more complete combustion when you use a grate and have the air flow from underneath the wood. It's just you use so much wood up. That's the thing. The wood just goes to nothing very quickly. You kind of waste a ton of wood. But these stoves are only meant to be burnt, like if this was a heating stove, twice a day only for an hour and a half. So it's not a big deal. It's not like an iron stove where you just burn it all day long. It's such a waste. So he hasn't used any fire brick yet. Also in Russia, they have these nice doors, these thick. They're meant to sit in between brick. We can't get anything like that in the United States. Trust me, I've looked. You have to put in my doors for my Russian stove the old-fashioned way, using wire. Had these old doors shipped in from the Ukraine that were from the Brezhnev area, the Soviet era Brezhnev. Hasn't used just the brick box. These Russian stoves are a box inside of a box, fire brick inside of red brick with the appropriate and proper gaps to allow for expansion. Maybe that's what he's talking about there. This gap's pretty big. I mean, that's several centimeters. If you don't need structural support by leaning on anything, you might as well make the gap err on the side of making it a little bigger. You don't want the fire brick will expand more quickly and bigger and push out and crack the red brick. That's a side chamber. That's some sort of Kuznetsov dry slit or dry slot. He hasn't even built the firebox yet. There it is. On the right, it's called a dry slot. And I guess we don't want to stray too much. This is about bath stoves. We'll talk about that some other time. When you see that, though, that's the first chamber that's going to get the gases. The gas are going to flow down that chamber, then up the other chamber, probably into the rocks. He's building this. This is multi-purpose. I mean, this isn't just a bath stove. This is also to heat like the entire building. If you're not going to use a sauna, this isn't just for sauna. It's too big. He wouldn't be doing all this. This is a full-size Russian stove. I don't know. Maybe it's like a business where the bathhouse there. Like we looked 20 people come in. It's like huge, so you need some massive thing. I don't know. Maybe I should just be quiet and go through the video. You just place your iron grate over the lip you make with your angle grinder. The air comes from underneath. There's your Kuznetsov dry seam or dry slot connected into the firebox by cutting a hole in the fire brick. And now he's okay. There he's starting to build. When you see those I don't know what sort of stone or metal is going across there. That's the grid that's going to end up holding the rocks for the bath stove. I'm still trying to figure, why is he putting a dry seam in here? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. It has side chambers. It's going to go up through the rocks, I guess, the flames and gases. And then there's the side chambers in the back there. Yeah. Guess the gases are going to go up through the rocks and then going to be pulled down the back right chamber. And then the lifting channel will be the back left and up and out. And this they're going to make a double bell stove from a sauna stove. I don't know. Matt, just shut up and let's get through this. Let's just look at the sauna stove portion. So it creates this grid to hold. There's going to be a lot more hold. That's not, it's too wide. Yeah, that will hold rocks. That'll hold big rocks. What is he using there? Is that metal or stone? I don't know. But I like the spacing. See how big the spacing is? Always let those gases inflame through. It is unsafe to choke it off. Big gaps. If you lose a little efficiency, so be it. So he's using a welded metal frame to frame the top fire brick box that he's going to use to hold the stones. The doors are all covered up with saran wrap so they don't get big pieces of cement and sand and clay all over them. I guess he's going to, the flame's going to come up through the stones, and then it's going to go bend off to the right, go down one channel, up the back channel, and out. So I guess it's a sort of design that the stones just help with the total mass of the stove. If you don't want to use it as a bathhouse, use it as a heating stove. Yeah, there's the side. That metal thing, bottom left, some sort of water jacket. I guess it heats. It's close enough to the firebox where it will heat up, and you get your water for the ladle out of that. That's all he shows. So go back to the beginning just to end this. I know here's the firebox, and let Go back a second. That flame's just going right up through the stones. Even though that dry seam was, and then on the side up top around to the right is this door for the rocks. And it's drafting. There's no smoke pouring out. All right, guys. So I guess if the easiest thing to do on the cheap would be, build yourself a little wooden insulated metal hut in the backyard. Build a brick firebox, red brick. I think if it heats up slowly, you don't need fire brick if you don't use it that much. Put a grate in, make sure you underneath, especially for shovel out, no smoke. Put a grate in, so wood sits on the grate, air comes from underneath, just like this showed. And then build another grate up top, so the flames and the gases and the smoke pass right through the rocks. On top could be another brick box, but if you want the heat, if you want it to heat up more quickly, I would use an iron. I would put in a burn barrel, a burn barrel with all the paint stuff burned off on top of the brick box. The burn barrel with some sort of rebar grate at the bottom would hold the rocks, and then you'd just cut a hole at the top of the burn barrel and have your chimney go up from the top of the burn barrel outside your little house or hut, and then you'd cut a little door on the side of the burn barrel to get your ladle in there and pour your water all over the rocks, which would end up running down through the grate into the firebox and then eventually down into the ash cleanout door. It would get messy down there, but I guess they just put up with it. That's the best middle of the road solution for cheap, easy, heats up quick because you've got the metal barrel, the burn barrel up top. The metal's going to heat up immediately, where the bricks will take hours to heat up. And that's how I would do it. I would not mess. I would have the flames go right through the rocks. You have to have the right stove, or you just pile rocks around some old wood stove. It might not get that hot. It's a risk. Thanks for being here.